in our district to look at education through a more equitable lens. Be assured this work will continue as we move forward as a district. I appreciate the approach you have taken on our board. And has brought many thoughts and ideas to our board and our district to consider. Your commitment and passions have impacted us all. On behalf of the school board, thank you, Leslie, for serving as a Peninsula School District board member. We're not done with that. I'm just going to go on to Marcia for a bit. Marcia, I appreciate your commitment to representing the Key Peninsula and our entire district. When we became board members 4 years ago, we were often asked, how will we bring the Key and the Gig Harbor Peninsulas together? Over the past 4 years, there has been so much progress, and I'm so pleased to see the entire district working together. Passage of the bond was the perfect example of this. We could not have achieved this great accomplishment without the entire district working together as one. I thank you for your commitment to help make this happen. I appreciate your institutional knowledge, both in education in general, but also specifically your history with the Peninsula School District. It's beneficial in moving forward if you understand where you have come from. On behalf of the school board, thank you, Marcia, for representing the Key and serving the Peninsula School District school board member. We would like to honor both Marcia and Leslie's leadership and service on the board by presenting each of you with a plaque and flowers and thank you cards and gifts from the entire district. Wow. So we will give you the plaques here in a moment, but there's so many fabulous notes and things from the entire district and the kids and the schools. So we will get to that. Before I give you the plaque, so we're going to have a few words from a couple of our children, our students. And these are students at Purdy Elementary. Is that right, Brooke?
Thank you, Ms. Harris and Harbaugh. Thank you for helping our schools. I like math, reading, and writing. School is important because if we didn't have schools, we wouldn't learn. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harris and Ms. Harbaugh for the school board.
Today I am going to say thank you to Ms. Harris and Ms. Harburg. Thank you for your service, Ms. Harris and Ms. Harburg. Thank you for being part of our school board and helping our schools. My favorite things about school is art, music, and reading. Darn, I should have included that. Thank you for your service and helping the district. Math and PE are my favorite. Thank you, Miss Harris and Miss Harbaugh.
And there's many other that have spoke to thank you for both of you for your service, and we'll send those to you as well, but wanted to highlight a couple of those tonight, so thank you. With that, I would like to ask Dr. Jarvis to say a few words.
And it truly is my pleasure to say a few words. First, I think to all school board members, but I'm going to address it to Leslie and Marcia. The school board role may be the most underappreciated and least understood of all volunteer positions that people take on. You've both experienced that in some of the things that you have to tackle. The iceberg metaphor of how much is on the surface and is seen at school board meetings and where the real work is done below the surface and behind the scenes is so true. And the two of you epitomize that work in terms of your work that you do and the time that you've put in representing the district. My words, I guess, I get to speak in three different ways. One is appreciation of school boards. Secondly, I get to be a voice that represents an entire staff, and particularly 9,000 students in this district. You just heard from 3 of those, but the word that I would share with both of you is truly bless you for the gift you have given to the staff, to the school district, and especially to the children, because that's what this is all about. As Deb said, the passion that you bring to your work and the dedication is just absolutely astounding. It's remarkable and deeply appreciated. I also get to speak, I guess, just on behalf of myself. And as a superintendent, as a human being, I've been here a year and a half. The two of you really allowed me to be who I was from the moment I walked in the door, and both of you wrapped yourselves around me in a way of keeping me safe from some of the things I needed to know or didn't know, and in other ways just offering your unconditional support. And I cannot thank you enough for that. It has enabled the work that we do. It's enabled me to continue to love the work and come every day, and I will miss both of you and that unconditional support. Individually, I guess I would say, Marcia, for some of you who may not know, Marcia and I first had our first conversation in 1973 for me. And Marcia was down in OSPI, and I was a young assistant superintendent working on federal programs, and I needed to know some things. And guess who I called? I called OSPI, and I talked to a lady by the name of Marcia Harris. So then over my long career, I had an opportunity to continue to see this colleague in a variety of roles as she did her rescue mission and in places of how do I use my skills to help improve a school district here and a school district there. And it was just one of those kinships that you develop when you watch that kind of dedication and caring, but most of all, the skill. And then I commend her at this stage. Having the kind of skill and background that Marcia has is kind of tough to then switch to the board role and say, how do I be a governance board member? Because her knowledge of the finance system, for example, exceeded most people in the room. And I watched her do that with such grace and such dedication to want to see it right, but at the same time move to that governance role while using her skill. And so I just say thank you for that, Marcia. It has been beautiful to watch, and on behalf of a relationship that started in 1973, I can only express my deepest appreciation for that kind of collegiality. Let's
Before you go on, I need to thank the entire board and the boards that I worked with while I was on the board for your patience with me. And making that switch from rolling up your sleeves to the governance role was not easy. And I've learned a lot sitting on this side of the board table. And it's been very interesting, and it's been a growth experience. So thank you all for your patience.
Leslie Harbaugh, you and I started a year and a half ago, I think, and I first met you. And I was thinking a few minutes ago, and some of the what I'll call the partisanship that we're watching and some of the feuding that's going on, and recognizing what your current role in your future job is. I just offer you my commendation and respect for that, Leslie. You're a beacon of this is what I believe, this is what I am passionate about, and this is what I will fight for. And I guess I just think it's terribly important to, in the role of a school director, to start with children and then build the world around that. And to be able to do that as you have done, and take on the world if necessary, but to say this is who I am and this is what I believe, I commend you for that. It's people give a bad time to quote unquote politicians, but then there are people who have been elected that do what their heart says this is the right thing, and so thank you for that. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for the personal support. I'm still doing this because I have people like you too, and the rest of the board that just makes it joyful, and we can take the hard stuff because of the governance that's provided by a board. And I think in this last year and a half, the part that I've experienced, it's been phenomenal. If you in the audience don't know, I actually nominated the board for the Board of Distinction this year, because I think everybody should know where they were 18 months ago and the problems that were facing them and where they've taken it as a board. And I think you two represent that. You were the first two I talked to in consideration of this particular work, and I remember it well.
And
so
you still said yes.
I still said yes. So both personal and professional, on behalf of an entire school district, on behalf of 9,000 children, the deepest personal thanks. Thank you.
But if you would like to say a few words, you're welcome to. I know you've already shared some, but.
I guess I would say that if I could teach like some of the teachers in the Peninsula School District, or if I could drive a bus like some of the bus drivers in our district, I wouldn't have become an administrator. We have remarkable people working here in most of the schools across the state, and I feel very fortunate to have worked with so many of you across time, and many others. So Peninsula is on the right track. They're moving ahead, and they have many more good things to come. I hope to watch those buildings as they come out of the ground. And now I'm going to go home, sit on my pillow, and eat bonbons.
That's what I say all the time. Okay, and then Leslie Harbaugh with the presentation of your plaque. Thank you very much, and all of your wonderful goodies there.
Party gifts. Thank you.
And if you would like to say a few words, please.
I actually didn't prepare it. Oh.
Well,
I actually didn't prepare anything. I thought we were just going to come together and have some cake and go over
And we
some
are.
And we are. I know that.
but if you wanted to.
But yes, and that was very kind. But yeah, 16 years in this district, 4 on the board. It's been an amazing experience. It's been an honor and a pleasure. It truly has been. And I have great appreciation for the souls that work here and advocate for our kids, and to remind the community that no matter what you see and hear that may be negative, this staff, these souls, these people who support our schools are here for the kids, and they always have been, and they always will be. And so remember that. So when you're hearing things out there, I want you to remember it's all about the kids. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I will now recess the regular meeting for a reception to honor Marcia and Leslie. Please join us in the lobby for some light desserts to wish them well, thank them, and for their service. And I will then call the meeting back to order at 6:25.
on the school
No.
board. You can leave that. I gave you this. You're just not on the school board yet. I said, get up over there.
Come on, people.
He sat down in his
Seriously.
chair, so you can't sit there and not on the school board.
Okay. I now call the meeting back into order. And I will start with saying this business meeting of the Board of Directors is being held in public in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act and is being live streamed. With regard to routine matters, board members have reviewed the agenda and have had the opportunity to clarify questions with the superintendent prior to the board meeting. Such matters are often processed without additional comment or debate. With that, we will now be welcoming two new board members and one re-elected board member that have all been recently elected. And I will ask Dr. Jarvis to do the swearing in.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Chuck West, would you step forward, please? I'm going to bring you right in here. Would you raise your right hand? I state your name.
I, Chuck West,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of Director of Peninsula School District,
of Director of Peninsula School District,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
That's great.
And as each is sworn in, we'll ask you to sign the oath, and that becomes the public record. Natalie, would you step forward?
We're to sign the right one. Almost signed.
Thank you, Brooke.
No, that's okay. No, this gives me a little bit more time to be nervous. It's like a wedding now.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Natalie Wimberly,
Do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of Director of Peninsula School District,
of Director of Peninsula School District,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
I, Larry Glover,
Hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington.
and will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Director of Peninsula School District,
of Director of Peninsula School District,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
number 401, Pierce County, State of Washington,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
thank you all. Dr. Glover, I look forward to continuing to work with you. And welcome Director Wimberly and Director West to the board. And I think we are really excited to move forward and do great things. So welcome and thank you all. Okay, with that, I will move on to approval of the agenda. There is one change to the agenda tonight. Agenda item 13.18, approval to enter into a contract for the Gig Harbor High School shot put relocation project is being removed from the consent agenda. After voting on the consent agenda, the board will discuss and take action item on this item. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion has been approved. Oh, I forgot to say. All opposed. The motion has been approved. Sorry. Okay. We move on to election of officers. In accordance with Board Policy 1210, Annual Organizational Meeting, election of officers will now be held elections for the President and Vice President positions on the board. Those elected will serve in these roles for 1 year. We will be taking a roll call vote for each position. With that, I now call nominations for Board President.
I nominate Deborah Christian-Dawson.
Deborah Christian has been nominated as Board President. Look, I guess it's me. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second it. Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
I now again call for nominations for Board President. I again call for nominations for Board President. Okay, is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay, it has been moved by David and seconded by Chuck to elect the school board president, Deborah Christopherson. We will be taking a roll call vote on this motion. Brooke will call for the vote.
Lori Glover,
Yes.
David Olson,
Yes.
Chuck West,
Yes.
Natalie Wimberly,
Yes.
Deborah Christian-Dawson.
Yes. The motion has been approved, and I look forward to serving our board and our district as board president. Thank you all. Again, right? Okay, I now will call for nominations for board vice president.
I would like to nominate David.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
I again call for nominations for board vice president. I again call for nominations for board vice president. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
Are you interested in it?
I also would nominate David.
Okay, okay, okay.
Thank you for asking. It has been moved by Chuck and seconded by Natalie to elect David Olson to be the school board vice president. We'll be also taking a roll call vote on this motion. Brooke, will you call for the vote?
Lori Glover,
Yes.
David Olson,
Yes.
Chuck West,
Yes.
Natalie Wimberly,
Yes.
Deborah Christian-Dawson.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion has been approved. Congratulations to David Olson.
Thank you.
In also our organizational changes, we also assign committees to the board at this time. And we, as board members, like this opportunity to really go out and sit on different committees to get a deeper understanding of certain areas. And we currently have 8 committees that we sit on and participate, 1 or 2 board members. We primarily act as observers on these committees, and there's some a little bit of actionable items. Information from these then committees come back to the board from the members, and the board appreciates this opportunity to be included in the district like this. With that, I will go over each committee and the board member representatives. Our state legislative representatives is our David Olson and Deb Krishnadasan. Our Parent District Council representatives, Parent District Council is a meeting that happens once a month. All of our schools, all 15, soon to be 16 schools, meet, and they go over hot topics and district information, and it allows the schools to share information with them amongst themselves. And our board representatives are Lori Glover and Natalie Wimberly. Our Equity Committee is a committee to consider equity and inclusion within the Peninsula School District. It's a fairly recent committee, and it will grow as the district needs grow. Our board representatives is Lori Glover. Our Finance and Audit Advisory Committee, again, this is we're very familiar with this as they've reported out to us several times as a board. There's 7 community members and 2 board members that meet to provide an independent lens and oversight of the school district's business, practices, and financial decisions. They act as an advisory committee. Our board representatives are Deb Krishnadasan and Chuck West. Our CTE, Career Technical Education Advisory representatives, they meet on monthly, and the purpose is to help determine the career and technical program goals. They review and evaluate career and technical program effectiveness, give advice, thought, and direction to equip courses, experiences, and support among other things. Our board representatives for CTE Advisory are Natalie Wimberly and Chuck West. Our Peninsula Learning Advisory representative, this is a new committee to the district. It represents the District of Learning and Innovation. This committee is also looking for parents to be representatives, so if anyone's interested, please let our board representative know, Natalie Wimberly. We also have another new committee. It's a WASA Inclusionary Practices Project Representative. This will be new, and it's actually a statewide committee with 30 chosen districts to consider inclusion in our schools for special education. Peninsula is applying as one of the participating districts, and if we are chosen, our board will be represented by myself and any other board members wishing to join me. Lastly, our Trades Council. This council focuses on providing and give exposure to opportunities for skills trade programs to our students. Our board representatives are David Olson and Chuck West.
Chuck West. Yeah.
So thank you all for serving as board representatives, and again, thank you to the district and the community for allowing us to be participants of those committees. Okay. We now will move on to the superintendent's report. I asked Dr. Jarvis to present to the board.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess first, a thank you to the board. In November, you put together a resolution for a levy to go on the ballot on February 11th. That has been occupying a significant part of my time. And it provides me an opportunity to get out in the community and share information and out in the schools. And we have been doing that. I really don't see that as a burden. It's actually fun when you get a chance to meet. Some of these people in the audience have now heard me more than once, and I don't know if they're ready for any more, but it really does give us a chance to share what we're about as a school district and what's coming about on February 11th. So that is occupying a lot of time. It reminds me that we are 6 weeks from the ballots dropping, and just that urgency that while February 11th seems a long ways away, it really isn't in terms of the election and what happens. So I would also offer to the community and anybody who might be watching that if there's a chance or a need for one of us to come and talk about the school district or answer questions or particularly provide information about the levy, we will go just about anywhere that people want and try to connect with people, because clearly the levy is a huge part of our operation of the school district, and it's well worth our time. I would also note that this is a great season to be part of a school district, because throughout the system are Christmas plays or their holiday events, their music festivals, there is work wherever you see it at all levels of the students. So I just remind people to pay pay attention to those school calendars and get a chance to see the plays, the music, but I think most of all, to watch children of all ages celebrating the holidays in this community, and to watch the joy that comes with that. Sometimes it's the joy of watching your child perform, and other times it's just the joy of watching children who are truly singing their hearts out. So it is that season, and then on that note, our last day of school will be Friday on the 20th, which is coming really fast, and then we take some time off for people to theoretically rest up. I'm not sure that that's true, but school will close on Friday the 20th, and we'll reopen after a very busy week, first week of January. I would also take time to note that in recent times, we sometimes see the significance of us running a small city, and we have a small city of 9,000 children and all the staff, and sometimes things don't go the way we plan them or would want them. But I think we also get to see in those unusual circumstances, we get to see staff and students and others respond in a way that really reminds you of a great crew of professionals. And two of those incidents, I would note that we had the unfortunate situation of being tagged recently in one of the schools, receiving more than its share of paint and messages, and frankly not so nice messages, and messages that reflect part of the world that you really don't want to see. But in rapid order, starting very early in the morning, we watched our maintenance staff, Jeff Otis and his crew, and Patrick Gillespie, and really the school staff, and for that matter, students, step in to say that we don't want this image of our school being the one that's public, and make it disappear in a hurry. And I just offer my deepest appreciation to that kind of spirit. This is a wonderful school district. It's a great community. And when you watch something like that happen, I guess it's human nature that somewhere in our society things like that do pop up. To watch the response was absolutely heartwarming. I would also note then on a note, we had a student injured by another student, and as it was said, an art tool. But to have a student injured at school, and then to watch people really rally in every sense of the word, whether it's the community emergency services people coming in very promptly, and Mr. West, I know that you're deeply involved with the fire department and the medic training, but 5 vehicles came to our assistance seemingly within seconds. To watch, and Danielle, if you'd stand for a minute, I'm going to name you. I think Danielle was one of those people. She and Dr. Potts and the Peninsula High School administrative team, and for that matter, really the teachers and counselors and staff, just stepped forward in a beautiful way to take care of a young man who was injured, to take care of the situation, and to do it in an outstanding way. So my hearty appreciation for that kind of professionalism and dedication, and on behalf, the young man that was injured is back in school, and we're grateful for that, and dealing with the rest of it. But I think it's that note, it's just a reminder that we have a great community, and as the phrase goes, good communities make good schools make good communities. So this is a community that cares, and to watch it both inside and outside is heartwarming. So on that note, I would conclude my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thanks for calling us out as well. I'll now ask our student representatives to present their school reports to the board. Kira is absent tonight and excused, but we'll start with Ashley from Henderson Bay High School.
All right, so this week at Henderson Bay High School, we had our Rotary Luncheon on Tuesday, sponsored by Gay Harbor Rotary, Midday Rotary, and our Interact Club helped with that a lot. And we had school board members there, communities and schools. The mayor of Gay Harbor was there, Gay Harbor Fire Chief, and different Rotary clubs. So that was really awesome to see our community really come together for that event. Today we had a blood drive at our school. We had 16 donors, and so that was like a pretty good turnout. So she was telling us how Gate Harbor only had 40 some donors when they did it, so I thought that we did a pretty good job with ours.
Nice, you did.
Well done, Ashley.
And then tomorrow we're doing police officer appreciation for Gate Harbor police officers, and our Interact Club is also doing that, so that's pretty exciting to get to do that. Yesterday we had our holiday shopping for Fish Food Bank. We raised $455 to go buy gifts for the community, and we bought teen-specific items, and when we got to the register, we spent $455.33. So we were like on budget. We got the 33 cents donated by one of our teachers. So it was amazing to see that. We did our wreath sales, our biggest fundraiser of the year, and raised approximately $463 for our school. We had a field trip to the Burke Museum, and we had 25 students go on that. And then upcoming events is we have our HCC holiday dessert buffet that we're doing on the 20th for our last day before break. And some stuff I want to share with you guys really quickly is for internships and projects. We have one group who has been sending out these newsletters to our school. Sorry, I don't have more copies, but they're really cool. It gets to tell all the amazing things our school is doing, and they're front and back with pictures of us. We did the Adopt a Road, and we had some spirit days, and it's all in this. And it was really cool to see that kids want to take interest to share about our school. And also, I wanted to share a little bit about, I did an internship at Evergreen Elementary, and I went out there today, and they had thank you notes for me, and I just want to show how internships really impact people. So these are two of my favorite letters that I got. Said, "Thank you for volunteering to help us. You are amazing. So glad to have you. You are like a superhero to me. Dear Ashley, thank you so much for helping our class. It was such fun taking you to see the hissing cockroaches. You were really brave. I hope you had so much fun as we did seeing the hissing cockroaches. I also liked reading to you. I will really miss you. You would be a great teacher. I wish you could stay." So these are like, yeah.
Thank you, Ashley.
That was awesome.
Lena from
All right.
Bristol High School.
All right, so we have 120 students in drama this year, and they're working on the Christmas Carol. So if you have not seen it yet, it is excellent. I highly recommend. And their showings are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7, and one 3 p.m. showing on Saturday. Next up, we have DECA with their clothing drive. They had a super, super successful clothing drive. They practically had a whole entire room filled with clothing, which was insane. I walked in there and I was like, where do I sit? It was amazing. And then our CIP program, which is our Community Inclusion Program, kicked off their first unified basketball practices with all disabilities and boys and girls. So if you guys want to come out to one of those games, I'll let you know. They'll be next month. Winterfest, we had a record-breaking year this year. We had a great showing and a vast amount of ticket sales, which was super awesome. So next up, we have Interact Club is hosting a toy drive that went all throughout this week and ends tomorrow, so we're doing super well on that. Winter sports have begun, and our teams are looking awesome, so that's super cool. Leadership and Avid are hosting the 12 Days of Kindness this month, so every day there'll be like a picture or a nice note on someone's like locker or door, which is super cool to see. And then we have Breaking Down the Walls was approved and paid for by Rotary Club, which is super cool, and we can't wait to see that coming up this March, I believe. And then we have December 12th, we have our winter band concert, so if you guys would like to see a beautiful production of band, please show up, that'd be awesome. And then we have our Share the Love month coming up this February, so that is a great way to share the love right there.
Thank you, Lena. Thanks to both of you. It's so great to hear all the things that you guys are doing and impacting the community, and thank you very much. Okay, I will now move on to comments from the community. Members of the audience wishing to speak to the board are asked to identify themselves for the record before sharing their comments. We ask the comments not be personally directed. abusive, or obscene. In the interest of fairness, there's a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Please note that this is the opportunity to speak to the board, and the board will listen, but not engage in dialogue or offer a response. Thank you for respecting these guidelines, and I know that Sammy Jensen has signed up, but
yeah, she just let you know that she had to leave.
okay. Is there anyone else from the community that would like to make a comment? Okay. We'll move on. We will now move on to our district reports. The Audit and Finance Advisory Committee, Elena Brown, will now present this to the board. It's Elena Brown. Thank you, Elena. Does she want to speak? She's going to go there.
Thank you. My report this evening is fairly brief. I'm reporting on the November 18th meeting of our committee. On the agenda that evening was an update about the status of the levy, and also we were asked by the board to give our advice about communication regarding the levy. So we invited Amy Gordon to be present at the meeting and spent some time talking about the toolkit and different communication thoughts and ideas for about the levy to the community. And that was the extent we enjoyed our opportunity to share our thoughts, because we'd spent a lot of time thinking about the levy, and that was what we accomplished at the last meeting. So hopefully that was productive for everybody. We are scheduled to meet again this coming Monday to talk about the bond and some follow-ups with the state audit and preliminary financial results for the fiscal year 2019.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the capital projects management update, and I ask Jeff Green to come present to the board. And Patrick. Anybody else? And and who? Oh, Jesse will be here as well to present to the board.
So today we opened bids for Pioneer Elementary School. We look forward to reviewing those and thank you, and bringing a recommendation to the board on the 18th at the special board meeting. Release of permits are to get the permits released. One of the requirements will be the completion of the property exchange between Penn Met Parks and Peninsula School District. So you'll see a few of those on the consent agenda tonight that'll help us close that up so we can move on to that. Sorry, we've had a really exciting day, so our emotions were kind of all over. So, and as part of the building of Pioneer Elementary School, you'll note that we're really affecting the shot put pit at Gig Harbor High School. So I know we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to kind of make a quick comment on it, that that'll be something that'll go away really quickly when we start that project to create a storm pond. So we'll talk more later. So we're excited where we're at and moving forward. Thanks.
I will touch briefly on elementary school number 9 update. That is the school across the street from the YMCA, for those of you that don't know. We are, like Patrick said, we just opened bids on Pioneer, so elementary school number 9 is the next one up. So we're working furiously to get the documents done. We're in the construction documents phase, which means that we know what goes in the building, and the design team is busy just working on the little details to make sure everything's right. We're working on making sure we have bidders lined up. So, and final review of documents. We are wrapping up this week the third-party constructability review, which we are doing for each of the projects. And with that, in the next week will come an updated estimate. Permits, we're working with the jurisdiction and with utility purveyors to make sure we have everything lined up. No news is good news. And the schedule, the bid schedule for elementary school 9 is we are advertising for bids in early January, first week of January, and we're opening bids first week of February.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening. One of the questions was, well, what do you do after opening a bid? You worry about the next project that's going out to bid in a week or two. So in addition to that, so Evergreen, we had a meeting at Evergreen yesterday with the design committee, the site-based design committee, to bring them up to date with where we are and to express our appreciation for the input, to represent some of what we're trying to do is create a standard platform across the district, but it gets differentiated in each situation, and Evergreen is a differentiated solution to the standard ed spec that the district developed. And so our hats are off to the citizens and the staff that participated in those meetings that helped differentiate that, and to the principals that have been working together to create the standard platform that is emerging from these 4 projects. So Evergreen, the SEEP has been issued. Evergreen will be the first of our state-assisted projects, so the documents that you get will be different than what you've been seeing. We'll have a D7 set of documents that we'll bring forward in January, and the bid awards on Evergreen and Ardendale, the resolutions we bring will be different than the resolutions that you'll get on these first 2 projects because they acknowledge the state participation. A little bit different process. So there are still significant permit issues at both Evergreen and Ardendale, and we're working through those, but when you have an extra month, it just seems like forever. So Evergreen will go out to bid in February, and we'll open bids. We'll open bids either the last week of February or probably the first week in March. And Ardendale will go out to bid in March, and we'll open either the last week of March or the first week in April. That's it. Are there any questions? Oh, I wanted to thank Chuck. So it was Citizen West that participated in the meeting last night at Evergreen, and so it's a pleasure to welcome Board Member West tonight and to give our report to him.
Thank you very much. Lori, do you have any questions? No. David? Natalie?
No, thank you.
Chuck?
No, I got them answered last night.
Okay. Anything from Ashley and Lena? No? Okay. I just want to say, I know I've said 100 times, so I'm going to say 1,000 more times. Thank you. The amount of work that you guys continue to do on a daily basis, and I think 7 days a week, is amazing. And hopefully it was bid well in today's opening. We look forward to hearing that information on the 18th. But my hat's off to all of you guys that are Vicki out.
Right. We want to acknowledge Vicki, who's as well.
I hear she was instrumental in the work with the exchange of property. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, Vicki actually runs our department.
So she's been instrumental in everything. So thank you, and Jesse and all. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I now ask Assistant Superintendents John Helwick and Dan Gregory to present their reports. Put your pen back. And are you, sorry. And joining him is Principal Fedor.
Yes. So one of the things we talked about during our assistant superintendent reports was giving you a little bit of a snapshot to go a little deeper into some of the work that we're doing. And so today we're going to talk about multi-tiered systems of support. So you've probably heard that. We've thrown the acronym MTSS out. That came, as we explained a few months ago, kind of from the board action plan that really focused on that, making sure that we're providing supports for all students and the whole child. Now, so the question is then, what does that look like? You talk about that being an initiative, you say you're going to do training, but at the building level, what does that look like? So to explain that, brought Heidi, and she's going to talk about what that looks like at Kopejok.
Thank you.
It's a multi-year project. This is not just something that we're doing very quickly.
So can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, I have the clicker. Nice. So I'd like to introduce our MTSS team, and you can see where there's a counselor, a language arts teacher, math teacher, school psychologist, and administrators. And this is a model that we were given, and every school has this kind of representation for their MTSS team. And so I'd just like to acknowledge John Yellowlee. So thank you for putting together this work. It's very, very structured in terms of this team. We have a plan that we follow. Every school has that same plan. And then there's a certain amount of latitude for how we sort of roll things out. So this is no exaggeration that we really are excited about the work. And you can see, I mean, everybody's pretty happy in those pictures. And part of that is that so often with a school improvement plan, it's really challenging to get everybody in the school to be very excited about reading or writing or math. And so when we focus on something like the whole child, every last person, down to our custodians, to our bus drivers, et cetera, can play a really active role in this kind of work. So we really appreciate that opportunity. So our journey, it's been very much step by step. Some of it has been directed by kind of like within our school, and then some of it has been directed through Wayne Calendar. So you can see that first arrow. We started with an August lid, and it's really helpful for schools when the district provides sort of this opening, like a keynote to say, here's where we're going, and this is this person. Wayne Calendar inspired our teachers and gave us opportunities and tools. And then we had just a little bit of pride time. It inspired us to take a look at our Healthy Youth Survey data. And that data, it's helpful, but I have more to tell you about the panorama, which is super helpful. But that data told us a little bit about relationships with kids. So what we did was we just wrote up pride cards to a whole lot of kids. So we gave out about 100 in September to just begin to build relationships with kids. Then if you go to that next arrow, at our staff meeting, we began to do some work around, if you picture a triangle, that bottom tier is sort of like everybody is doing whatever it is that we're saying we're going to be doing. Tier 2 and 3 might be more specific for students. And so we started to look at what's our behavior system. At the same time, at the district level, we were changing like referral forms and discipline forms. So we needed to discuss that. But then once October rolled around, we were looking at OSPI standards, which I'll go to the next slide in just a second. And then in November, we brought in a yoga person, and again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also in November, we started working on an MTSS, I guess a task I would call it, is to look at our students' behavior, what we expect of them. So very early on, we looked at what you're looking at are 6 sort of overarching standards that came from OSPI. You can see on the left-hand side, it's really around like the students' regulation of what they need to do. And then on the right-hand side, it is more around what kind of community do we want to build. And so we knew that it was sort of a new concept for our teachers, so we had our teachers go into a Google Doc and rate, like, what are the top 5 things that you want us to focus on, and then what are your top least comfortable areas for you. And one of the areas that our teachers talked about was some of the stuff like this sort of thing, like getting kids to breathe deeply, or to what we call like a cozy corner, to create this space in your classroom that allows kids to self-regulate and get ready to learn again. I'm going to slide. Thank you. I'm getting the good coaching here. So this is Christy Fisher, And so this was an area that our teachers said they felt least comfortable with. And so this is one of the tools that she brought. So it's a Hoberman tool. So if you all will join me in this activity, it's going to be a breathing exercise. And so this tool represents our lungs and how we have a need to take in some deep breaths. So as you watch the Hoberman tool, I nicknamed it Hobie. But as you watch this expand, we're gonna take in a deep breath into our lungs, and we're really expanding. And think about expanding our lungs out to the side.
We're holding it right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. And then you're going to exhale slowly. And then as we, it's actually a good thing to hold a breath. But every time we take in a breath, we're thinking about taking in a cleansing, positive breath. And every time we exhale, we're just getting rid of all of the thoughts that we have carried throughout the day. And optional here as we're taking our deep breaths and exhaling, we can also think about what are our intentions for the day. So MTSS asked us to give students behavioral expectations. So we may have students take a look at those behavioral expectations and decide what's one thing that I'm going to focus on today. So maybe for our board tonight, you're just letting go of everything that you're carrying today. You've gone out and done a bunch of holiday stuff, or you have stress that you've walked in here, and you're just letting that all go and taking in those breaths, and every time you're exhaling, we're just letting go of all of that stress. So Christy Fisher took our teachers through this, and what was so great is afterward asking our teachers, like, what was your level of comfort? I mean, you can see they were doing a really weird thing where they were like plugging their nose with one finger and then opening their eye and stretching their mouth or something and taking in breaths. Every single person in that room did it, and they said, I feel so much better. Like, I feel less stressed, I feel more present. And so, I mean, they just were, they're totally on board and wanting to become more comfortable. Our next steps are, we went ahead and bought some samples of Hobie, and they are super cost effective, and so now we've just put like an order form out to our teachers, so everybody who wants one can get one. We also then plan on using Second Step to walk students through the Pride behavior expectations so that they know what they need to be taken care of. Next month, we're going to show Screenagers, the next chapter, which is all about mental health and what schools are doing to help kids regulate their emotions. Already our ASB students have seen the film, and they are starting to plan activities that support that film. And then lastly, that Panorama data, we kind of launched things with the Healthy Youth Survey, but the beauty of Panorama is that there's a fall and then there's a spring assessment. So we really can get behind sort of the growth that we want, what are the areas of focus. And our staff, even back, if you think back to the slide, we looked at those 6 OSPI standards. They already identified self-management as being something that kids need. And there was some really specific data that came out of Panorama, such as I can stop myself from being distracted by others, or I'm able to get rid of stress. And so it's pretty helpful and gave us a lot to think about. So there you have it. Thank you for reminding me that you had to exhale.
Make sure your teachers are trained in that.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah, we'll be sharing more about the Panorama data, and again, it's just a wide variety of questions, survey questions that give us a good look at how kids feel about their confidence, about their safety, about their growth mindset, those types of things that we just haven't measured well before. And also just keep in mind, this year our big focus is on social emotional learning, but MTSS is also academic, and that'll be more of a focus for next year. Any questions?
Questions to Heidi as well.
I just have one about who takes the Panorama survey.
Yeah, come on back up, because I have some questions too. Bring your Hobie. No, I don't need it. I already feel better. So I'm good.
Does every student take the Panorama survey?
Almost everyone. We had a few students who were absent. We just weren't able to capture those. So we would have loved to have had 100%. So we'll just do better in the spring. But we had about, 90 some odd percent, 92, 93.
And that was pretty typical of all of our schools, and it's grades 3 through 12.
Okay.
Lori?
Was the slide, the picture of Christy doing that with the teachers, teaching them with the Hobie, was that for the teachers, or was that to teach them how to? I assume it was to teach them how. I went to a breakout session at the WASDA conference last month where it was specifically talking about trying to take opportunities for, and maybe you already do this, having more sorts of events like that for just teachers to relieve their own stress and, to just focus on, you guys and just breathe in and hold it. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Not long. Anyway, that just reminded me of it. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that we're actually already sort of moving in that direction with students, and it'd be great to see it with staff as well.
Yeah, and they really did appreciate that. Just that very thing was just getting them to slow down and to be present. And in fact, when Dr. Jarvis was at our meeting this morning, I asked our teachers, kind of jokingly, but also seriously, should we make this a tradition? Should we make breathing and that sort of thing a tradition? And people seem to be really positive
Did they
about
say yes?
that.
We should all breathe.
Yeah, and then so with Christy, she says that she's working with a lot of the elementaries too. And there's like a small fee for she'll go in for a whole week and join a PE class and then teach the students about some of that too. So, yeah.
Thanks. Chuck?
Is this being done in any other middle schools, or is just, are we starting it here?
Specifically, it's in all of our schools are doing MTSS.
Okay.
Social emotional learning.
Okay.
I don't know if they all have both, but they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not yet.
But they're all taking a different look and see where their needs are at their school and seeing what we're able to do.
I'm going to
Nice, I like
piggyback
it.
off that question, Chuck. So as you guys are learning new things and maybe discovering some great things, how are you sharing that with other schools? So that's kind of lessons learned and.
So we are getting the teams back together every, what is it, 6 weeks? Out there.
Okay.
Yeah, every couple of months.
Okay.
And so there's an opportunity for them to share at those
Perfect.
events, and so that's been very good.
Okay, good. David?
You've talked about it before at the board, but for those that aren't aware, can you touch a little bit on your pride card thing?
Oh, sure. Pride cards it's based on our values or our mission statement. So anytime a student shows perseverance, responsibility, integrity, understanding or being appreciative of diversity and pursuit of excellence, they get a pride card for that. And so one of the things that we saw in our Healthy Youth Survey data was that students didn't feel appreciated or praised by teachers. And so, we noticed that sometimes like a lot of kids or a few kids might get a lot of pride cards. And so we just made sure that we kept sort of a whole roster of students to make sure that multiple students get them.
Can students give other students pride cards?
No, but that's not a bad idea.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Lena or Ashley, any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. So about the mindfulness activities, my teacher in English, we do Mindfulness Mondays, and we take deep breaths, and we do our breathing activities to help be in the moment, and we set our intentions, and we do gratitude. So we pick one thing we're grateful for in the last 24 hours, which is shown to have a better effect if you write it down and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to share that's what we do in our class, and Miss Brewy, shout out to my English teacher, does a very good job with that. So shout out to her.
Yep. Yeah. Good. Okay, good. So you did mention that you liked the district's support and the kickoff at the beginning of the year. Other things that the district can be doing to help you as you roll MTSS out to your schools? Or
No, honestly, I really have
You feel supported
appreciated just
and-
the structure around it, but then also, just those looses and the tights. I think it just helps us move along and keeps us kind of going in the same direction, where then at the professional development, those sessions, that things are sort of related to what we need. So I feel like we're getting the support that we need.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then some of this stuff is or most of it's very new to the kids, and teaching in school, breathing and yoga or whatever. Anything going home to the parents to communicate, like, this is happening at our school, if your kid comes home saying, we're taking deep breaths or something to educate our parents so that they're in the loop as well.
Yes, and what's interesting, I find what I hear a lot from our parents is they need a lot of affirmation too, that they're really feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes they feel like they're not doing a good job. And so, like any time that we send stuff out in the newsletter, I usually get at least one comment from people just saying thank you. You know, this is a good way to have a conversation with my child. So we are pushing that out there, and definitely January is just going to be full on, just pushing it out there. That's our big month.
Good, because I think that it would be good to maybe have consistency when you go home, that maybe they have a Hobie at home where they can continue that practice at home. But, I know as a parent, I needed a Hobie for one of my kids. So,
I took it to the PTA and told them, I said, this might be a good gift to get for your kids.
Well,
We've really tried to emphasize that with all our schools if they're starting to do this. Sometimes there can be misconceptions about what's happening or what's the purpose behind it. So we've been really trying to get as much communication out as we can.
Dr. Jarvis, anything? No? Thank you very much, and I appreciate the focused reports. It's fantastic. Thanks, John. Thank you. Dan, in the future. And now we've got Assistant Principal O'Leary and Grant. I knew your first name, but I couldn't remember your last name. Principal Grant, Assistant Principal Grant with Dan Gregory.
Yes, thank you. And similar to what Lena said, our gratefulness is the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon in terms of our 24 hours timeline. Heidi had mentioned the Healthy Youth Survey, and what we want to share with you tonight is some of the response that we've had as a district to the Healthy Youth Survey, and supporting our high schools and eventually our middle schools based on some of that data. As you might remember, well, let me slow down. First of all, welcome Director Wimberly and Director West. Sorry, dive right into the business part of it. But welcome. It's great to have you here. And whether you were here last spring or not, when the Healthy Youth Survey came out, I think for some of us it took us back a little bit in terms of some of the data around substance and alcohol use and abuse, and I use both of those terms intentionally. In addition to that, we were looking at some of our discipline data last year, and I know there were a number of conversations amongst ESC staff, amongst building administrators, and here at the board level about the significant growth in vaping, and I know students were frustrated with some of that as well. We needed to act, and it wasn't like this was all new last year. It's been occurring, but the sense of urgency that was generated by that data really spurred us to move forward and act. And so after several combinations with the cabinet, we submitted a request for proposal. I was going to say RFP, but I'm not going to acronym you to death the first time out on the board.
I think we have a
so we put a request for proposal out in early July. And we received a response from Crossroads. Crossroads is a drug and alcohol support organization, and they are licensed in the state to work with adolescents. And after working through various pieces of the contract, again with the support of our student services folks and John Yellowlees and his team, we were able to put a contract together, and they started with us in early November. And I've been checking in periodically with both the Peninsula staff and the Gig Harbor staff, and Mr. Tovey couldn't be here tonight. That's my fault. I didn't give him enough notice. And he had an appointment for his dog, and you can't get your dogs into the vet, apparently very good. So he did share some comments with me, but I wanted to bring these two ladies before you and have them share their reflections. I've been very pleased with the feedback from administrators. And I'm going to stop and let them talk, and then I'll try to summarize at the end. So I'm going to hand off to Mary Kate here and let her share the impact of Gig Harbor High School.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight I'm briefly just going to share some observations, some challenges that we're working through, a brief summary from the Crossroads counselor who's assigned to Gig Harbor High School, and then with permission from a student with no name,
a student review report to give you an idea from those 4 different lenses. So I'm very pleased to report that all stakeholders, students, parents, guardians, high school counselors, deans of students, our success coach, we as administrators, the first initial report is overwhelmingly positive, and we are just thrilled to have this opportunity and resource available to our students in the community. So with that said, I'd like to start with those positives. The Crossroads team is quite professional and works with students diligently to provide them the support that they need. That's just from the get-go. I might also point out that this is very early on, as Dan said, since November, so everything you're hearing has taken place within a 4-week time frame, if give or take a day or so, either way. Currently, Gig Harbor High School has 8 students who are involved in some part of the Crossroads process, whether that's the initial intake, whether that's the evaluation process, whether that's one-on-one, that small group, or conference, or a small group. In some form or fashion, they're involved in that process. Referrals are coming from counselors, they're coming from parents, they're coming from teachers, and they're coming from, most importantly, peers. I can't stress enough that that opportunity is there for students to really share and be able to go to someone else other than a counselor, an administrator, or a parent, or we receive that information via email. It is so powerful to say you have a friend of yours that is so concerned about you that they want us to talk to you, and I cannot stress that enough. Excuse me. Additionally, this gift and resource has just lifted a strain on administration, on deans, on counselors, you name it, because we're not experts. We do a phenomenal job across the board, but we are not drug and alcohol counselors. We have nowhere enough time in the day to really address addiction. And so, again, I cannot thank you enough. It just is proven in such a short period of time, so comforting to say to a parent or to a student in front of me that it's okay, you've made a choice in life, it doesn't define you. We want you here at school, in this community, and we have a resource that we hope that you will access. And that's been really powerful. Some of the things that we're working through real quickly is Crossroads is wonderful, but they don't have a background in the educational system, so they're learning how to navigate systems. How do you get a student? Protocols and things like that, but again, they're amazing. One of the things we're working through is first point and first touch has been successful, and then students are saying yes, and then they get to that moment where they have to jump all in, and it's that complete commitment. We're not there yet, but they're really working on building relationships and trust, and we are seeing that happen, but that really is very present. And then also, lastly, we're working through coordinating a standing weekly meeting with Crossroads and Peninsula School District. That will prove to be invaluable. Currently, Mariah is assigned to Gig Harbor High School from Crossroads, and she is just a lovely woman and looks like one of the students, so she just fits right in. But she's reporting that we're off to a really great start. She's met with 10 students. She's completed 8 of those assessments. 7 of the students have agreed to participate in treatment, and of those 7 students, some of them are attending 1 to 3 group sessions, whether it be during lunch or after school. So all really wonderful, powerful things going on. And then I'd like to close with a student review, and I did not edit, change in any way, so allow me if I may. I think it's a pretty good program to have. It will help kids feel more comfortable having a drug and alcohol counselor from Crossroads to come to for support and know that they will not be judged, so they can feel like they are able to be honest. I feel less judged talking to you, Mariah, the counselor, rather than someone from the school. The kids that are struggling with addiction, it benefits them more from talking to an educated counselor who knows what they are going through. I think kids will benefit from the education, and it will help those kids who need the support. It will teach them about the long-term effects and what they are putting in their bodies and what they are getting themselves into. I think it is definitely a good program to have in the high schools. It can prevent kids from having a serious addiction. And so with that said, I really would like to thank Dr. Jarvis and the cabinet all who played a significant role in this. It has proven just to be life-changing for students in a very short period of time.
Ditto. No. Did so well. So first, again, I want to thank the cabinet, the school board, Dr. Jarvis, and your support for getting Crossroads to partner with Peninsula School District. It has just been a missing piece kind of in our puzzle as a school for support, as Mary Kate mentioned. Crossroads has been amazing. They've been collaborative, and most importantly, have taken the time to understand Peninsula High School and who we are as a school, our students, our demographics, because every school is different. And so to jump right into the work is important, but also just to understand a little bit about who we are and kind of what we're facing. We have Doug as our counselor, and he's at Peninsula High School Thursdays, Fridays, and Mondays. He's spending his time right down doing the assessments, the individual counseling, and then the groups just started last week. The groups are a great opportunity for kids to revisit and be around people that are struggling with the same things that they are doing. Oftentimes we see students that maybe go and seek treatment at other places, and then they come right back to the same environment that they struggled in. And so if we don't have those groups and if we don't have those support systems in place, they will fall right back in. They will go to Bridgeway, they'll leave campus, they'll do whatever, and they're gonna be back in the same thing. So to have those groups, those connections are really important. One of our groups meets on Thursdays after school, and we have it run at the same time as our activity bus. So transportation is not an issue. They met with us right away. We have a top priority list, like tier 3, we need to meet with these kids right away because having this service come in November, we've already been working with a lot of students in regards to discipline as well as just mental health struggles. And so Doug has already done 6 assessments with our students at Peninsula High School. We have 2 students who have committed to treatment, which is really exciting, and I'm proud of students and their bravery to do that. We also have a lot of students that are almost there. And I think it's important to note that we do not want to force any students into something like this. It needs to be a choice. And so it's important to build that trust, and that's what Doug is doing a great job of trying to not force the issue and to just kind of keep revisiting it and coming back and giving that support, which kind of leads to some of our struggles, and the big piece does go with trust. We're a little worried that kids are not being completely honest about their issues because they're very fearful. One student noted of where that information is going to go. Is it going to go to their parents? Is it going to go to the admin? Are they going to get in trouble? Which, and we know, is not the case. Our goal is to support them and to help them with their addiction and not to discipline them. So that piece is something we're going to have to work on so they understand that Crossroads is there to support them and to not get them in trouble. Also kind of logistics, as Mary Kate said, kind of working into a school. If you're at a treatment center, that's what they're doing all day. But at a school, we know we have 1,000 things going on, and so access to students at Peninsula High School specifically is area, an office, a place for groups to meet. We are over capacity. We have employees in our schools that do not have an office. And so right now we're trying to figure out a way so that they have a safe place for the people to come to. And it's confidential, and we're working through that because it is a huge priority in our schools. And without the services of Crossroads, a lot of our students can't learn. And so that's what we're hoping to work through in the coming months. And like I said, and Mary Kate said, this is so new, but we're excited about the work and the future. Also something to note, because I know a lot of people kind of go back to the vaping piece, and we have students that are on a wide range. I had a student in my classroom, or in my office the other day, and he said he started to use when he was 9 years old. And he's at a very far end of addiction and some choices that he's using. And then you have students that are very new and are starting to vape. And so the services are varied. We are hopeful for we're gonna have a Saturday district vaping class. So if a student does get in trouble, makes that choice, then they could, their consequences be to attend a class that Crossroads would lead on a Saturday. And so different kind of navigating those things, and it's such a wide variety and such a big issue. So with that, if there's any questions? Or
If I may. Is he done? Still got to go?
I was gonna wrap it up.
I think
but I'm
he's
gonna
gonna wrap it up. We've got one more question.
Yeah,
one more
but I
thought.
actually did forget, and this is another shout out and thank you. We have an incredible success coach, Janie Bice, who we share between both comprehensive high schools. She is instrumental in this transition and working with, collaborating with Crossroads. And just really wanted to make sure that we had that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just to kind of wrap, a couple of things come to mind, just a couple of statements. Number one is there are no throwaway kids. And so we have to do what we need to for every kid. And there are some that struggle more than others. And this is just a level of support we've not had in the past. And I've been very pleased, and I thank our building administrators for welcoming Crossroads, and they're making it happen. The second phrase that sticks in my head is we're in the business of changing lives. And that could be changing lives for our students going on to 4-year degrees, but it also could be changing lives for kids that are going down the wrong path. And if we're able to change that path, then we're changing those lives for the better. I'm going to hold off on Mr. Tovey's comments just in terms of time, but I just wanted to jot down a couple of things while they were talking that they had shared with me previously as well, and it was in Brian's report as well. I heard member of the team. The Crossroads representatives have come on, and they're a member of the team. The beauty of the model of having them in our buildings is they're there, and they're there for the kids. They're creating relationships with kids, but they're a member of the team and interacting directly with our counselors and administrators. And Mary Kate mentioned some things about the referral process that I learn something new every time. When we have students referring other students, that's huge. That's huge. That's coming from student to student. We as adults look at our students and we say, hey, they need help. But when they're finding help for their peers, that's huge. And that doesn't come without the connections and trusting relationships. And then the last thing I heard was another positive adult in the building to interact with kids. And I'm going to add an adult with a specific skill set that we were lacking in our buildings. And so very appreciative of the work. It needed to be addressed, and the sense of urgency was there. And our building administrators have done an excellent job receiving that, and we're anxious for that support. So now I'll let you ask questions, and I'll hand it to Mary Kate and Danielle and let them answer those.
David.
Well, first off, the 6 years I've been on the school board, and we get the healthy use surveys every couple of years. And I remember the various boards have always address the various issues that trouble us in that report. And every report, I know not just me, but some of the other school board members said, this is the same old stuff, we keep seeing the same stuff, what are we doing about it? And so I'm really glad that the school district is taking it serious, because I think earlier this summer, I think the school board started to get a little frustrated, especially around the vaping piece, that people couldn't go to the bathroom because there was vaping going on. I'm very familiar with Crossroads, so I'm glad that's who we're partnering with. You answered a couple of my questions that I'd written down during your presentation. Addiction, obviously a lot of people associate addiction with opioids and alcohol, and you mentioned vaping. So can you, and mental health. So I know a lot of our healthy youth surveys around mental health as well, as far as feeling anxiety and suicidal thoughts. And you can be addicted to opioids and not have suicidal thoughts. So can you talk a little bit about are your 10 people at Gay Harbor High School, or the 8 or 10 that you identified, are they addicted to opioids, alcohol? Can you talk a little bit around that? And are you specifically addressing vaping as an addiction, or is that a separate issue?
So for you want to dive into that, or you want me to overarch that first?
There's a lot to that.
Why don't you let me have a part of that, and then I'll hand it to you. Part of the beauty of this relationship, and Danielle talked about it a little bit in terms of the trust piece, is we might get some general feedback from Crossroads that says, hey, this is what's hot out there right now, but we don't want to get that deep as a school staff. So we kind of want to keep a buffer there to a certain degree, but it's good for us to know what to look for. And I'm just going to add on to the mental health piece, and then I'll let Mary Kate talk about the specific piece. And this is going back somewhat to my Henderson Bay days. Kind of a chicken and an egg thing. Do we have a use or abuse problem because of mental health, or did the mental health drive self-medication and use and abuse? And we're not equipped to make that call. And that's why having this resource is just really important, because we don't want to play amateur drug and alcohol people or amateur psychology So having that resource there to take that for us, that's a skill set we were lacking. But I don't know, I'll let you answer the other part about the specifics.
Sure, there's very little I can share other than that students are either dealing with an addiction to alcohol, to drugs. We have one student of the 10 that has a serious vaping problem and asked for help. So again, we are so early in these stages, and I look forward to reports throughout the year and keeping the data so that it can be another conversation at the end of the year.
Just because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So first off, I think it's amazing, okay? The 10, I don't know how to properly word this, but to get the word out that this is successful so that other students hear about it, so that it grows.
So I appreciate that question. And we have worked closely with Jeremiah from Crossroads, all the staff there, is that we want a very natural, slow, authentic launch, if you would say. Holding up the sign, drug and alcohol counselors here at the Commons with 800 people. And it simply started with Ground Zero, the first student, and I'm proud to say that our students really care about each other, and they have shared this opportunity. One situation came from a parent, ironically calling Crossroads, and we were scrambling at Gig Harbor because none of us knew what was going on or what took place. But it was an outside referral that was able to come in to the building, and we were able to make that connection there. So every story is different, but.
If you have more, I'll come back to you, but I'm gonna move on to Lori.
Oh, just, I, like David, I'm just thrilled to see this so much progress so soon, because, as a new board member, when I heard the Healthy Youth, survey results, I was kind of overwhelmed. Well, certainly impressed by the numbers and not surprised by that. But, also just thinking, where does this go from this table to actually reaching students? So, I mean, that feels like just a ton of progress in this short amount of time, so that's awesome. And I think that toward the end of the trust issue, because I think we all have that. I know, like in our jobs, you might feel like you need to report something that you did, but if you feel like you're going to get fired for doing that, then it's hard to know how to proceed. Kids, I think the more they refer and say, hey, I talked to somebody and they didn't call my parents, or they didn't, I think that will grow with time. That piece will be huge, but it'll be slow to grow, but it will come for sure. And my last question is just more about the Healthy Youth Survey. I was particularly stunned by the numbers regarding depression and suicidal. The question was something about thoughts. It was a very general question. It was one of the middle of the road sort of, is this something that you've ever one time considered, whatever. And the numbers were so huge that it made me ask at the time, could these results be shared with the students? Because I think it's super powerful. If you were sitting in a classroom and you realized that half of the people in there were having the same feelings that you were, and I don't remember if that's, so I'm just talking about the general results of the Healthy Youth Survey, to literally have a way to say to students, you are not the only one who feels like this, because 75% of you are dealing with something. Is that something that can happen or is already happened, or?
I don't know that that data has been put in front of students. I think we'd want to make sure we have the right format for that, and that we had a plan to follow up after we put that in front of them, and I don't know that that's been formulated. But
Yeah, I'm not suggesting you give out the whole, packet to all the students, but I just mean kind of in a general way to communicate simply that you're not alone.
John Yellowlees, but I'm sure we'll have a discussion about how that might go through either the MTSS group or through a different group through Student Services, and make sure we have counselor support if that does generate anything from there.
Thank you.
Natalie?
I just kind of want to echo what the others have said. I applaud you for taking this information very seriously and taking your time to be intentional about who you select and having appropriate and skilled resources to address the problem. I think we realize it's a nationwide problem, but it's important that we address it locally with our families. I like that you are rolling it out, like you said, kind of organically with the highest need probably first. I hope that there's room for growth and a higher capacity as word of success gets around. So I would just like to know how we can continue to support you in that effort. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And Chuck?
Couple comments. I'm familiar with Crossroads. They have an office actually in Key Center. And this is great to see them in the schools and getting things going, and I think it's going to grow. When I was campaigning, I have some friends over in the Rosedale area, so I got a couple kids that went to Gig Harbor High School that talked to me a little bit. And one of the comments that these girls made was that they were very happy that there was an enforcement element that was going on for the vaping. And it sounded like it was a fairly new officer that was in the schools that was actually taking it seriously, was their words, and taking away the vaping sources or whatever. And so they felt like they could go into the bathrooms now. So I don't know if they can work together with Crossroads and also the enforcement element so that these other kids feel safe and good about going in there. The question I have is about Henderson Bay. Are we getting similar feedback there?
Brian Tovey, yeah.
Right, I've seen that, but I'm just.
To watch the clock and go,
I'm hoping that it's just similar
Yeah.
feedback, that
Very
it's
much so.
positive. Good.
Good.
I'll run a copy for you, but then I've
Okay.
got to
Thank
put it in
you.
the record with Brooke too.
And I think just to go back to the monitoring, the more we know about the issues like this, the better we can help to prevent them and to make sure all students are not having to experience that when they do simple things like use the restroom. So we have noticed a decline in discipline regarding to certain things like this, and that's not to say that less students are doing it. I can't predict that, but I do think that we're trying ways to prevent it, and they're knowing that that's not okay to be doing in our schools. So I think that I'm seeing growth. I don't know about you guys at Gig Harbor, but
Absolutely.
progress.
Anything, Lena and Ashley? You're seeing it in Henderson Bay.
People
Very good
love-
job.
Good.
Mariah's part of one of the girls' groups at your school? That's what Mr. Toby wrote.
Yeah, I haven't met her personally, but isn't Sam Miller? Yeah, people like they're having a bad day, he'll walk around with them and just talk to them, and people whenever he walks in, like even like I don't know, like I don't talk to him about things, but like just everyone knows Sam, and you just give him a high five and ask him how he's doing. Like whenever he's in the building, people are happier and love to talk.
And that's the Crossroads.
Actually, Sam's with Comprehensive Life Resources.
Okay.
But he also has been working very closely with Crossroads. They're collaborating, so it's just been an extra hand. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to wrap this up a little bit, but I would say, this is a community issue. This does not fall on the schools to solve this, but if it is impacting learning, I'm glad to hear we're addressing it. So thank you for your work with that. And you don't need to answer this now because we're just rolling it in 1 month into this, but will there be consideration to bring this down into middle school to help with prevention versus helping with the actual addiction later on, although the 9-year-old concerns me.
So we'll figure out how that all rolls out because we're trying to figure out if we have enough time for them. Initially, the RFP was written as prevention and intervention, and there was some question about what are these people going to do during the whole time. And then when you talk to the building administrators, they're going, we could use them a little more than they actually are here now. So we're going to monitor and adjust, but the idea was to serve the high schools and the feeder middle schools. So for instance, Doug at PHS, if there was an issue at Harbor Ridge or KPMS, we would hope that they would give a call and he could leave whatever he's doing there and support the feeder middle school as well.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the high school. You know
Strategic
this.
planning will be jumping into this a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
good.
I now ask our Department of Learning and Innovation, Chris Hagel and Melissa Weiser, is she here? Oh, yeah. Hey, Melissa. To present to the board.
What do you want?
Yeah.
You missed the best part.
Wow, what did you guys? Boy.
All right, well,
welcome to our new board members. Delighted to have you here with us and help you as you are doing the work that you're doing, and we're looking forward to the partnership and hope that you'll be asking any questions that you have of us and giving us some good ideas and some good feedback. So, thank you. All right, so Department of Learning and Innovation, let's talk, I'm going to give you a brief update on 2 curriculum adoptions that we're going through this year. Thank you. Sorry.
I figured that out.
You've heard me report previously on the largest adoption we have going on, and that's the elementary STEM adoption. It is engaging 2 different curriculums that we are, the team has decided to look at. One is STEM Scopes, and the other is Amplify. And we have over 50 teachers, including our STEM adoption leadership team, who are piloting materials. This is the most comprehensive adoption I've ever worked in, and the amount of work that we're asking teachers to do in terms of not just doing the lesson, but having student documents and student feedback on these to make sure that we are going to select the product that is going to best serve the needs that we have in the elementary school. I'm very, very pleased and very delighted that as many teachers as we have were interested in taking part in that. The STEM adoption team were required to do that, and then we opened it up to the district, and other teachers chose to do that as well. So I think we'll get a really good product. We'll get great feedback, and we'll be sharing that with you. It'll go to IAC in the spring, and then it'll come to you for approval. The second adoption that we're working with is high school pre-calculus, and we have 3 different curriculum that we're looking at for this. CPM, which is currently the adopted curriculum at the high school, Agile Minds, and then McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill is the most traditional of all of the curriculum, something that we probably, you used and I used when we were in school taking pre-calculus. We have 8 teachers from both high schools working on that. They're both working on the same units at the same time, so it's an apples to apples. And we will be meeting with that group probably late February to get their feedback. Again, their process is not as extensive as elementary STEM because we're talking about a smaller group of students, and as opposed to an entire elementary adoption, but rigorous nonetheless. And we know that we'll be able to bring to you a decision that was made based on data and research and use of the materials in both classrooms by teachers. Some of the teachers are current high school pre-calc teachers, and some of them are not currently teaching pre-calculus, but we wanted to include other teachers who in the future may, so that there was some buy-in and input from the departments. And again, that will come to IAC in the spring. That's the Instructional Advisory Committee, and then it will come to the board for their approval. So those are the 2 adoptions that we're working on. Do you want to take questions or wait till we finish?
Yeah, let's do questions because this is a good break here. Chuck, do you have any questions?
As far as the pre-calculus stuff, how are we doing currently? You mentioned the CPM was the current curriculum.
For the other school, for the other classes.
Okay.
Right.
Was there a driver that made us want to change the curriculum?
We weren't using the same texts consistently at both schools, and we really want to have a guaranteed and viable curriculum.
Okay.
So teachers have some ability to, of course, do some pacing with their students. You know, we're not going to march them page by page, but we do want something that both students, that there's equity for students as they work with the materials. And frankly, the materials, as in many of the materials in our district, are aging, and we need to have something different. The books literally at this point are falling apart. David?
So before I ask my questions, I'm going to just add on to his, because I like the way you started that question, and you filled in on it, life expectancy of a curriculum.
It depends on the curriculum, and I think when we think about a textbook, that isn't the extent of the curriculum any longer. Even we do have current online subscriptions that we have, and it's important to extend the curriculum, but also it's an access for students. Some students access a curriculum online. It's easier, it's better for them. Some want a hard text. There's also a matter of price. If we don't, to buy a text for every student to have in class and possibly to take home is much more expensive to say we have texts in class and you have digital access at home, understanding that not all students are going to be able to or want to access that. So when we think about a curriculum, it's 8 years like we used to think. And we are certainly out of those 8 years, but we're working our way through it. We are looking at things like open ed resources, where the curriculum, like in illustrative math at the middle school, is a free open curriculum. It's been well vetted and highly rated, and that's what we use. The cost to the district for that is a yearly cost of printing the workbooks, but it's not the cost of a $200 textbook. And that's about what a textbook is. If you've purchased any university books, the high school books are not far behind it. And because they're consumables in most cases, then the students have, it's okay if they write it in or if it gets beat up, and we can certainly replace it more quickly and easily. So you have open ed resources, which may have print materials, and then you also have a lot and so many options for online additional resources. So whether it's VR or whatever it is.
Okay, so my question now. Great question.
So I didn't really answer your question, but
No,
it's.
you did, thank you.
Okay.
And then as far as your elementary STEM, as you're testing this curriculum out, how, and it's district-wide obviously, but how are you using Pioneer Elementary, since it's gonna be a STEAM school? Are there staff involved in this, and I guess my question is also, if the school district adopts one of these curriculums for elementary STEM, does Pioneer Elementary automatically have to use this curriculum?
So, good question. Yes, the new core team for Pioneer, there are 2 teachers, and they are both piloting that material, so they do have access to that. Does Pioneer absolutely have to use this particular material? We haven't made all of those decisions yet.
Okay, and then the last thing is just, at what point do parents come into play for your curriculum evaluation?
Once we are able to narrow it down, then we will present those to parents. Likely here, parents can always come in and preview any current curriculum, and that would be in the DLI department, and it will be the same, and we'll have, it'll be on display, and we'll have some nights. We could do it in the schools, but that puts a burden on the schools to have access all the time and for parents, whereas if it's here, then it's me leading that work.
Thank you.
Are there parents on the committee? I think in the AAC process, isn't there?
Yes, they're not yet. They'll be brought in later, but we do have special ed. We have building administrators and all grades and all schools are represented.
David asked my question.
Yeah, just wanted to piggyback on what Deb asked. Who sits on that IAC?
So the IAC is comprised by district administration, and also, so we have the instructional facilitators are represented. And there's a administrator from each grade band, elementary, middle, and high. There are, and then a representative from every building.
Okay. And then parents are brought into the process after a curriculum is selected?
So parents have been invited to be on IEC, and at this point, we don't have anyone who has taken on that opportunity.
Wait, look right to the camera when you say that.
Parents.
Okay. Ashley, Elena?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have done, I've used McGraw-Hill and CPM. I was actually part of the pre-calc class that used CPM, and I really enjoyed it. I liked how it had the online resources, so actually when I didn't understand it in class, I was able to click on the video for each problem and have my own personal tutor on how to do the problem, which was fantastic. So
Great.
That helped me pass the class, so not gonna lie.
Great. Thank you for that ringing endorsement.
Good. Well, and I was going to say on that same note, I'm glad that we're looking at others other than CPM. Glad you had a positive experience. I hear a lot of student experiences that are not so favorable for CPM. So I appreciate looking at others, and then as we move forward with looking at our math curriculum overall, considering those changes.
Yes.
Unless they are fantastic, but I keep hearing that. Okay, so I think we will move on to Chris.
Yep.
Peninsula Learning
So
Advisory.
I wanted to share our new Peninsula Learning Advisory, and we're really excited that Director Wimberly will be joining us as part of this now. This is kind of an evolution of when we merged all of our departments together to create the Department of Learning and Innovation. We had previously in technology had a technology advisory group that we used as a conduit for the buildings to get feedback on things we were thinking about, and also to share information back and forth. And so we're going to kind of follow the same ideas with that now. One of our many conduits to the buildings will be this group. We really want to get more teacher feedback into what we're doing. Some of the things in the last meeting we did, we talked about learning experiences that teachers have had in their lives and what are powerful learning experiences for them. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I guess, to me or any of us, were all of the learning experiences that really meant things to people didn't take place in school. So, you know, and then that does spark a conversation to have with, you know, what kind of learning experiences are we building for kids? And, you know, the ones that are the most meaningful to you never happened in school. Is that happening to our students as well? And so we worked through an exercise with that last week. We also we shared the Peninsula Promise with teachers, which we haven't done a great job of so far this year. Got a lot of amazing feedback on that from teachers, and so we're going to continue and expand that throughout the year to just kind of take a look at that and see how it, you know, we did a lot of work centrally on that, and now we just need to get more feedback on that, bringing it back. So let's see. We also talked about some of the new curriculum adoptions that Melissa just shared, so that we make sure that that gets out to all of the buildings in case people aren't aware. We talked about Remind is a new communication tool that we're going to adopt district-wide for parent and teacher communication. So trying to, it's something that over 150 teachers are already using on the free version, and we really wanted to, yeah, there was 1.8 million messages sent back and forth last year on a free version between parents and students. So we really wanted to adopt that district-wide, so it's a consistent tool available for all teachers. So we used the Peninsula Learning Advisory last month as kind of the last feedback loop. We had done surveys with staff and gotten their feedback on it as well. And so that was kind of our last feedback group for that. So still looking for parents also. So we'd love to get more parents. Parents are always tough to come by on some of these advisory committees, but we've had them before and hopefully have them again. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? You want to, Natalie?
I'm super excited to be working with you. So
Good.
please, my door is always open. So I mean, I will be there for anything that you need. So
Great.
Thank you.
Lori? No, please. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to new business. 12.1 Policy 4215, Use of Tobacco and Nicotine Substances. This is our first reading. This policy is being presented for first reading and will be brought back for adoption at the next meeting in January. No action is required tonight. The current, revised, and final versions of the policy have been provided. Dr. Jarvis, would you like to provide us any other information with that?
No, I think in this case, one of the reasons we update policies is when the law changes, and this is one of those situations. Process-wise, you just highlighted, typically you'll see the old policy, or the current policy, I should say. You'll see a red line policy of what's changing, and then you'll see a clean proposed new policy so that you get a chance to see whatever. This one's really pretty simple because there isn't a lot of change. Some of the others are much more complex to try to figure out what's changing and what's staying. But it really is a response to the law that has changed on age of young people and minors in terms of tobacco. And it sort of ties in directly with the vaping, anti-vaping effort.
So this will come back to the board, but if there are any questions or discussion from the board right now before it comes back in January? No? Okay. Thank you for that. Resolution 19-25, authorizing the school district to consummate on exchange of real property.
I sort of love using the word consummate because this has been coming at us for months in the sense of this is the property exchange between Penn Met Parks and the school district. We have approved the trade, we've approved it in final form, and now it's back again. Because what happens is contained in the agreement were a number of side issues, such as the lease arrangement that takes place in the future, such as the conditions that were put on those properties. So this finally, even though it's been approved and finalized, it comes back kind of to haunt us, but it's really to basically conclude the process that this trade is done and the property is ours.
Okay, so with that, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 19-25 authorizing the school district to consummate an exchange of real property? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay, it's been moved by David and seconded by Lori to adopt Resolution 19-25 authorizing the school district to consummate an exchange of real property. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion has been approved. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 19-26, which is the endorsement of the Peninsula School District Educational Programs and Operations Replacement Levy? And prior to that, Dr. Jarvis, would you like to have any comments?
We have recently been blessed by endorsements by both Gig Harbor City Council and the excuse me, the Key Penn Parks Commissioner group. Each elected group is allowed to consider something that comes before them as far as a ballot proposal and endorse it. And then beyond that, they're not allowed to really become activists in that process. It is somewhat typical for most school districts also to consider their own proposals, and particularly right now, I think it's pertinent because two of you are new to the board that put this on the ballot. But it is an opportunity for the board to take a political stance on the levy that has been put before the voters. And after that, if this were to be approved, that is a standing position of the board, but we can't use the board to advance that. It just puts you on record that this is a good thing if you believe it's a good thing, and you get to take that political stance. So it's kind of a one opportunity that comes before you, and it seemed like a good time to not just have the other agencies, but our own agency to say, do we approve the levy? Do we recommend it?
I think as some of the newcomers here, we should probably be the ones to.
Yep, and
I would
we'll
like to
get
make
to
a
that discussion. Just, is there a motion to approve, to adopt Resolution 1926, endorsement of the Peninsula School District Educational Programs and Operations Replacement Levy?
Yes, I would like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Natalie? Okay. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Chuck, additional comments?
It's essential.
Okay.
It's really all I gotta say. It's continuing. It's a great deal.
Okay. Thank you. Natalie, any comments?
Say the same.
Yeah, okay. Lori, David, you're fine? Okay. It's been moved by Chuck.
I do have a comment.
Oh.
I didn't move quickly enough, I think.
Apparently, sorry.
Just that, I agree with Chuck, just that this is essential, to continue with, the programs and things we're doing in the district, and just to make clear to, the voters that it's a replacement of a levy that we are currently funding. So.
Yep. This is crucial. It's 18% of our budget. It would cut a lot of programs if we weren't to have this funding. It is a replacement. Voters passed this by 70% in 2016, and this levy replaces that one as we move forward. So with that, it has been moved by Chuck and seconded by Natalie to adopt Resolution 19-26, endorsement of Peninsula School District's Educational Programs and Operations Replacement Levy. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? This motion has been approved. Thank you. We'll move to the consent agenda. As a reminder, the board has approved a change to the consent agenda. Item 13.18, approval to enter into a contract for the Gig Harbor High School shot put relocation project has been removed from the consent agenda. After voting on the consent agenda, the board will discuss to take action on this item. With that, is there any discussion on the consent agenda as amended prior to vote? No. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Lori to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amended consent agenda has been approved. Dr. Jarvis, would you like to have any comments about the contract with the Gig Harbor High School shot put relocation project prior to?
I would, both for the community aspect and for the board. It's not easy for an elementary school to put a high school shot put out of business. But Pioneer Elementary is in the process of doing that. So quickly stated, for those that might not be familiar with the physical layout, Pioneer Elementary is being built on property that is adjacent to Gig Harbor High School. And just down below the Pioneer site is the track and field for Gig Harbor High School. That is the property you just approved in its final form to consummate that, and it has become ours. So that's, number one is we're building an elementary. Number two is we've just acquired that property. And number three, that property was essential in terms of the drainage for the Pioneer Elementary site and where to put the water collection. And then came a fourth piece, which was we could build a slope and then put a big wall and just sort of isolate the track and field, or we could do it in a more terraced fashion that served both. Long story short is that we had to use this as part of the drainage to make that work for the city. That put the shot put out of commission, and that put us in the position of replacing the shot put. I wish Mary Kate was still here to know that we're really thinking of them and not just putting their track and field out of commission for the season. So we wanted to be able to get this done in time that when the track and field season starts for the spring, that we haven't disenfranchised both the program. The alternative to this, as we looked at it and said, ouch, I mean, it's not inexpensive to do this, but the alternative was to put the track and field team on the road for the entire year, and that didn't seem at all appropriate. Add to that the fact it was never going to get any cheaper to do the work down the road. So Patrick Gillespie and crew rounded up really the process by which we can replace the shot put pit. And what you're seeing is that quote and the ability for us to move rather quickly to get this project done. So I go back to my first statement. Because of building an elementary school, you're now building a shot put pit. But in fact, we're replacing it because we didn't have any good options that serve Gig Harbor High School or the kids or the team well. So I'd be happy to answer more questions. I've glossed over just a few details, but it's really part of that project.
Okay, we'll get to more questions. Is there a motion to approve the approval to enter into contract for Gig Harbor High School shot put relocation project?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, David. Now, is there any discussion prior to the vote?
I would just say thank you, Dr. Jarvis, for pulling this out for discussion.
You're welcome.
Yes. Well, I'll see it in your notebooks. Chuck?
The location of the new shot put?
Patrick, would you?
So this great little drawing up here. So the current one is right here. We'll be moving it down here. We work with the track coach and stuff, and actually right now discus is over here and you have shot put. So ironically, this actually works much better for track and field. So we actually are able to, through the process of building an elementary school, actually correct something done a little differently in the future. I'll mention one more thing too, is that originally the plan was to put in an underground storage stormwater tank, like you saw in 62nd we put in. Significantly more expensive. So by putting the storm pond here, we actually save a lot of money, and it makes it where it's easier to maintain in the future as well.
Yeah, we want to make sure it was accessible, that it wasn't being put
No,
a long ways off.
very accessible and the track was very exciting.
Good.
Thank you to the district for allowing no disruption to our track teams with Bob Werner and Ross Filkins' reports last time on athletics and the increase of students participating in that. I think it's fantastic that we're keeping our facilities up for them, especially our state competitive shot putter as well. That we a contender. Okay, any other discussion? Lena? Ashley? Okay. It has been moved by Lori and seconded by David to approve the approval to enter into a contract for the Gig Harbor High School shot put relocation project. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion has been approved. And we will go into board discussion and comments. If we have a couple of comments that you'd like to share with the board, Chuck, you want to start? Or how about David start?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Put you on.
I think that since our last board meeting, we went to WASDA. And so I just was, things go by so quickly these days, is that we went to the WASDA conference. Every year at the WASDA conference, there's about half the stuff is the same as the year before, and that's because you have new board members that come in and they need to go through this stuff. So it's, there were some sessions this year that I think Lori and Natalie might have attended with me, but that were really unique this year compared to the previous years, and so I was really happy about that. One of them in particular was focused on how long does it take a teacher, and I was hoping Carol would be in here tonight, but how long does it take a school principal to be effective? And it takes 5 years for a new school principal to become an effective school principal, to be a good leader. And so when you have high turnover in a school district of school principals, it really makes it challenging for the teachers within the schools to build that connection with the principal. And similarly with a superintendent, you know, if you have a high turnover, then you're not having that connection with the principals and so it was all interconnected. And one of the things that I really tried to be proactive on in the board is professional development. And a lot of times we talk about professional development as it pertains to our teachers, but not always so much as it pertains to developing our principals to be effective leaders. And so when I got back, I think I mentioned it to you, didn't I? Oh, no, I didn't actually. The gentleman that was teaching a class that teaches professional development for principals said that he has had initial conversations with you. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up, is Sug's getting old. But he actually said he's had initial conversations with you, so you probably know who I'm talking about. And so I'm really happy that we're having that conversation about how we can empower our school principals to become better leaders, because that impacts our teachers. What was the name of the company? Yep. Okay, so he said he's talked to you, so I was really happy about that. The other thing, shout out to Ashley. I went to Henderson Bay lunch on Wednesday to the Interact. You're a really, really good president of the Interact, so great shout out. And I don't know the name of the young lady that sang this song, but she was amazing.
Yeah.
She should try out for the voice. She was amazing. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Lori?
I feel like Melissa, everybody leaves before our comments. They should be on the edge of their seat. Just also a couple of things from WASDA, since we did go since the last meeting. There were, I went to a breakout session where they talked about actually the importance of having student representation on your board and in meetings and whatnot. And I think tonight I was just really impressed with you guys, what you shared, but because you bring a perspective that we would never get, and just like word on the street and what's going on, and also an enthusiasm, and who's going to tell us better about curriculum or programs or things that are going on in your school than you guys. And so that is, I'm just really happy that we have that. And also, the other thing that I got out of WASDA last year as well, that I was so impressed with, they have student groups from all over the state perform at different general sessions and during meals and whatnot, and these groups are just spectacular, and particularly there was a group, I think, from Spanaway Lake that sang and danced and whatnot. it just really inspired me for all the possibilities of ways that kids can be involved in school that don't happen in the classroom, and things that draw kids to stay in school, and you know, and also just be involved in activities that are take them away from potentially other choices that they would make instead. So that was exciting. Lastly, 2 comments, just welcome also to Natalie and Chuck. I think as everyone has seen already tonight, you guys are just diving right in, asking great questions. It's just going to be exciting to work with you guys. I think you bring varied backgrounds, and I think I'm excited for the future with this board, because we are all actually have very different experiences and such, and I think we'll work well together. Lastly, a comment on Deb. Congratulations to you and David on just keeping the roles of president and vice president. A lot of people don't see what goes on behind the scenes as the president. Just wanted to mention really more for the community. I thought it was just an excellent idea to retain Deb as the president. She's doing an outstanding job. So much goes on that's not in this meeting, whether it's communicating with each of us through a meeting or a phone call or meeting with Art. And she just is a fantastic communicator and always very timely. And so this is really the best thing for the board and the district going forward. So I'm excited about that. And a final thank you just to Marcia and Leslie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Natalie?
Okay, well, and I have been a board member for 2 hours.
What have you done?
So you'll be glad to know there's not much that I have accomplished yet, but briefly, I wanted to say thank you for welcoming me here. I am really excited to be working with this group of people in particular. I can assure you that there are not more dedicated people to the service of kids than those that you see up here, and many of you in the room, so thank you for letting me be a part of that. Ultimately, everything that we do should start and end with our students and the well-being of our kids, and I'm looking forward to working with that. So things that I have done and seen just over the last couple weeks, I wanted to touch on the Kobuchek Middle School Veterans Day Assembly was fantastic, as it always is. For someone who has put on Veterans Day assemblies in schools, these are second to none, and they're sincere and thoughtful in honoring our veterans and ultimately our military-connected families. Tide Fest was...
After going to the WASDA conference and just learning the basics, it was amazing how much information there was. And I am just going to try and shut my mouth and be a sponge. But I'm very excited. I think we've got a great board. I think we've got some great people in the district, too. The people I've met in this district are just phenomenal. And I'm just really excited about the direction we're going. And I'll let you in on a little bit. I also get to interact with the schools kind of from my other side. So there was an injury also yesterday at Evergreen. So we had a young boy that fell off the slide and broke his wrist or his arm. And so it was great interacting with the staff in that realm also. You've got some great people working in the schools. And then I came back later for the presentation on the building. And that community down there is just very excited about what's going on. So,
thank you.
As am I. So.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. Was also at the WASDA conference and learned a lot, as I always do. I was also able to go to the joint annual meeting of Pierce County legislators and school boards. School districts. There are about 40 Pierce County school directors, superintendents, education associations, and our legislators. We're there. We discuss the legislative priorities, and I won't go into the priorities, but the legislators commented on they are going into short session, so there's not a lot of funding there. So thank you for the information, but come back to us when we have long session. But we did point out that many of our priorities didn't necessarily cost the state anything. So for instance, changing the definition for SEB, or adjusting regionalization, and clarifying there's no liabilities for school districts to have health clinics on site. So those are things that we push them to consider in this short session. I would like to point out, unfortunately, our 26 district reps were unable to attend. I did follow up with each of them and encourage them to come in the future because it was a very valuable conversation. And I look forward to seeing them there in the future. Christmas Carol, you're in for a treat. It's fantastic. And I wanted to also say our Harbor Ridge students, led by Mario Penalver, is that how you say it? Penalver, a teacher over at Harbor Ridge, they have a broadcast primetime and HR tech team. They're doing amazing things. They're doing editing, they're doing broadcasting, they're doing producing, an editor, and they produce shows and information for primetime classes. They were able to participate in a national, or it was down in California, Mr. Penalver was down there, and they live streamed them into about 60 to 80 teachers and school district folks down there, and they were talking about their experience and what they were doing for broadcasting and whatnot in Harbor Ridge. It's fantastic. They're top rate, so I want to shout out to that. Was also able to attend some work that Stephanie Strader and team were working on for not only what's going on at Pioneer, but how it will impact all learning and address the whole child in our district. So super excited about that as well.
Can I have one
Lastly,
thing? Oh, I'm sorry, lastly, sorry, go ahead.
Lastly, again, welcome Chuck, welcome Natalie, and again, congratulations Lori for your elections. I really am excited about moving forward with all of you, working with you, and serving our district, our community, and most importantly, our students. I couldn't be more excited right now, so.
One last thing. I just want to, that wasn't Lori's only election. So at the WASDA, she was elected to the Region 3 WIAA committee, and I was elected to the resolution. So our school district has good representation within the region.
Okay. With that, the board will not be holding an executive session, and the meeting is now adjourned at 8:25 p.m. Thank you. I just want to point out the celebration at the beginning was 25 minutes. So if we take that off, we're still at the 2-hour mark for board meeting.
You didn't break my record.